You're listening to Sweet Life, the show that helps you find and walk your own special path. I'm Brooke Peterson. Here on Sweet Life, we like to explore unconventional career possibilities, self-discovery, professional development, and more. Whatever helps and whatever works to make it sweet. Cars. From the dawn of human existence, or at least, since 1896 or so when cars were invented, there has been a human attraction to cars, things that go zoom. I don't know what it is about them. I don't have the answer here, but can we all agree that there is just something about cars that has captured the imaginations and passions of human beings, back at the turn of the century, the last century, a long, long time ago. It really didn't take very long, by the way, for the most adventurous of us all to try to see who could drive them the fastest. In fact, Henry Ford nailed it. He said, auto racing began 5 minutes after the second car was built. You got two. Who's faster? All right, the first race, and I put that in quotes, race, is cited as happening in 1887 in France and won by Georges Bouton. However, he was the only one to show up, so I'm not sure if it was much of a race. Nowadays, there's lots of people showing up for the races. And as it turns out, which I have just recently learned, full disclosure, there is a gazillion racing categories, series, classes a driver can choose from. And I'm pretty sure that is a literal statistic, too. A gazillion. What is it? Is it the speed? Is it the thrill? Do all those guys, sorry ladies, or Dana Kirkpatrick, have a death wish? I don't know. Do you? Maybe you'd like to find out a way of making your life more about driving fast cars fast. Could be a fun way of spending your days. Not the normal 9 to 5. Joshua Allan, I'm going to get to it finally. Joshua Allan is a race car driver and coach. He won the 2012 National Championship for the National Auto Sports Association's Performance Touring class, as well as the Regional Championship for Southern California. He's no slouch, y'all. He was also NASA's Instructor of the Year for 2012. He started off with a bachelor's degree from UCLA in mechanical engineering and suddenly found himself test driving development vehicles in Italy. For Maserati, Yeah, right? Okay. I'm not even a guy, and I'm like, dude, whoa, that's so cool. I can just hear the guys out there. So thank you for joining us, Joshua Allan.
Thanks for having me, Brooke. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, you came all the way from Fontana, yeah?
Yeah, Pomona area.
Pomona. And, we'll get to that. But now starting off with your educational background, mechanical engineering. Now, did you go into mechanical engineering with cars in mind, or what was your plan?
Yeah, as far back as I can remember, when anybody asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I just said, I want to work for Ferrari. And so I got a degree from UCLA in mechanical engineering, moved on to automotive, using automotive design tools for engineering, became a specialist at that. And that's kind of driven my career through to my job at Ferrari. So it was very much a dream come true.
Well, now, okay, so who introduced you to cars? Who was the influence in your life?
Yeah, I think it was my aunt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love it! That's fantastic! Yes! I'm so glad you just said that.
Yeah, when I was, I can't remember how old I was, but one Christmas she got me a subscription to a car magazine, and then it was just, over from there.
Done.
Right.
Yeah.
But I have to give my uncle some credit because he was a motorcycle racer
Okay.
back when I was a kid. So
Yeah, I'm sure that influenced you a lot.
right.
The whole competition.
Yeah, but I never thought that I'd be a racing driver.
Really?
I just loved the look of those cars and always wanted to drive them on the street and maybe own one someday.
Yeah, right? Now, okay, so what is it about Ferrari? Because there's a lot of amazing car, pedigrees out there. So what was it about Ferrari for you?
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to put a finger on it. Coming from the inside, I can see that they really have tapped into what makes people passionate. They've just got a really good, solid marketing that comes back from the beginning of the company to today. And that's the one thing that is really attractive is that whole tradition. It's not a company that's been changing for, whatever the newest fad is. They've always kind of set their own pace and made very elegant, beautiful, but also very exciting cars.
Yeah. And we're going to cover all of that in just a moment. But so going back to you're a mechanical engineer, and you were an engineer and not a designer, right?
That's right.
That's correct. Right. Okay, so now how did you find yourself in Italy working for Ferrari or Maserati?
Right. So I'm not a designer. There is a bit of a distinction there. But I did specialize in the design tools that designers use to make the vehicles, not so much on the styling side, but very much on the mechanical side of things. So I was working in LA, got a job for a company that was developing a new software that was yet to hit the market, and Ferrari was very interested in using that software, so I became kind of the de facto expert in the industry. I mean, there were a very small group of us, a handful of people with those skills, and so it was just a matter of...
and they found you.
That's right. Well, I have to admit, I had to go to Detroit first, so I spent 2 years in Detroit, and then that's kind of where I got...
the dues,
that's right, exactly.
I don't know. Sorry, Detroitians.
Exactly. The U.S. Motor City, I mean, it's done a lot for us, but
Yeah.
Coming from California, it was a hard transition.
I bet. Okay, so you find yourself in Italy. I mean, what are you thinking at this point in your life? Like, are you just flying high? Was there something missing for you? What was your experience there working for Maserati?
Oh, very, very much flying high. I mean, at 23 years old,
Whoa!
Getting a...
What? Oh, man.
Getting a company to, pay my flight over, all expenses paid, a U.S. salary in a foreign country. It was awesome. They still had the lira then, so everything was really cheap, and we could travel. We could, there was a group of us, a nice small knit group of young people who just all hung out together. So, it was kind of like an extended vacation, but with a little bit of work on the side.
And so for Maserati, were you engineering? Because I know you eventually started driving.
That's right. So I did 3 years with Ferrari in their Formula One department.
That was before Maserati?
That was before Maserati,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah, Ferrari, Maserati, I just can't keep them all straight.
That's right. So I came through with a background in engineering, and then I started to race on my own time. I was making some good money at that point, started taking some driving schools, and with my network at Ferrari, that really opened the doors to opportunities. And my objective was to become a Ferrari test driver. And I was really pushing in that direction. And I had a lot of support from the people around me, but it didn't really come through. And actually, I was about ready to leave Italy. I had canceled the lease on my apartment. I had sold my car. And then 2 weeks before I'm going to get on the plane to come back to California, Maserati calls me up and asks me if I'm still interested in a test driving job.
Wow.
So, a little bit of serendipity.
A lot. Well, I mean, I'm hearing that throughout, actually, so far. We're just getting started, I know, but it seems like, things are just sort of meant to be between Ferrari bringing you over with your educational background and, so on. But so... when did you start driving? Because you were obviously in Italy. Now, had you been a driver before going to Italy?
Well, I mean, from the time I got my license, I like to think of myself as a fast driver, a good driver.
How many tickets have you gotten in your life?
Actually, I've been pretty good. I've been pretty careful. But, I grew up in Sonoma County, and there's some nice back roads there where there aren't a lot of cops, or there weren't at the time. We'd kind of go crazy through the vineyard roads. And,
oh, man.
Yeah, so I think I kind of honed my driving experience from that. But
and so Maserati was like, well, that's good enough for us. We can.
No. So it wasn't until I was in Italy and taking courses, and I mean at that point I didn't really even realize that there was this position of a test driver. I mean, it was always kind of like a mystical, wow, that'd be cool. But then as I was kind of getting more experience, taking driving courses, and then also racing, I raced in the Italian Formula Ford Championship, and talking to some people at Ferrari was kind of like, hey, this could be an opportunity. And and it worked out.
So, yeah, I'd say it did. So tell us about being a test driver for Maserati. What does that look like? And like you said, it seems almost like a job that's just too good to be true. I mean, at least the impression that I have of it. And I'm not even a guy that has grown up in fast cars or whatever, but I still have an immense appreciation for the art and the beauty and just the power of really amazing cars. So, what was it like being a test development driver for Maserati?
It was pretty great. I mean, I would travel up and down the country. I'd travel to Spain, Germany. I mean, we'd be going all over the world, basically, testing the cars in various conditions, basically. And, it's very important, for example, that when you get in the car and you drive off, it's a very pleasurable experience. It's nice, it's smooth, there's nothing that seems out of the ordinary. When a car comes off of the, basically when a prototype comes out of the shop, it's not the best car. I mean, it's just whatever they could put together as quickly as they could to kind of get an idea of what the car is going to become. And then it becomes the test driver's job, working with the engineers, to develop something that, that you'd be happy to own.
Now, how much of your educational background as a mechanical engineer really seemed to help you in this new job of yours?
Well, it certainly helped me getting in. That was, I took kind of an unconventional approach into getting to that position because a lot of the test drivers, my colleagues, they would come through the production department. So they would be responsible for test driving the cars that come off the production line. And then once you pay your dues there, then they move you into the durability department where you just put miles and miles on the cars, make sure that everything works properly, that it works as well on the 100,000th mile as it does, on the first mile. And then from there, the lucky few get to move into development test driving. And so the attraction for Maserati was, okay, here's a guy who he has an engineering background. He's got experience at Ferrari. He speaks fluent English and fluent Italian, and the English is really helpful because all of their suppliers, that seems to be the common language, whether the suppliers from Germany or France or England or Japan, whatever the case may be. That was a big help as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you go to Italy already knowing Italian, or was that something you picked up?
Yeah, that was, when the opportunity came, it was kind of like, well...
Crash course.
Yeah, exactly. I had a month to prepare, and so it took some night school. But Ferrari had set up because Ferrari Formula One is such an international company, I think only about 50% of the employees are Italian. Oh. The rest come from the motorsports industry in England, Germany, all over Europe, and the United States. So they actually had a full-time instructor, language coach. So that was really helpful.
At least they understand.
That's right.
Now, how many, you said, the lucky few, and I can imagine, how many test drivers do you think there are across the board, industry-wide?
Oh, that'd be a hard thing to say. Okay. At Maserati, there were only 3. Okay. There was the chief test driver, and then 2 each one of us had a development program that we were responsible for.
So what do you mean?
Well, so at the time, there were 2 platforms. There was the Coupe platform, the Coupe Roadster, and there was the Quattroporte. And so we were developing the new Coupe, which was the Gran Turismo, and that was my responsibility. So. Okay,
all right. Now, are you also, I believe, are you also driving other cars besides Maserati? Yeah. Or are you only doing their stuff?
No, that was a very, very important part of the initial development of a vehicle because you have to understand where's the market for this vehicle. And then you look at what other cars are in that segment, and then you develop a vehicle benchmarking the best in class for the segment that you're going into, or for the segment that vehicle exists in.
And so you have to be completely objective, obviously, to tell Maserati, you're not the best yet.
Absolutely. That's a good point.
Yeah. And are they just like, I don't know. That's my...
Right. That was pretty good.
I don't know what that was.
They're very open because, of course, they want the best product on the market. So they want to look at how can we improve the product? Mm-hmm. What's the customer looking for? What is the customer expecting? Because, the customers, they come from the same vehicles in that market, whether it's BMW, whether it's Mercedes-Benz, Audi, people know what they want. And so we have to develop a product that fits that expectation.
Yeah, and you're helping them out. All right. You might hear this little tune underneath me right now. That's Cake. It's the coolest song ever. We're going to come back in just a minute. You're listening to Sweet Life. I'm Brooke Peterson talking to Joshua Allan. He is a race car driver, tester, and coach. We'll be right back.
He's going the distance. He's going for speed. She's all alone. But he's driving and striving and hugging the turns and
That's cake, y'all. Can't beat that song. Talking to Joshua Allan today. You're listening to Sweet Life. I am Brooke Peterson. We are streaming live from lancerradio.org from the beautiful campus of Pasadena City College. And Joshua Allan came all the way from Pomona today just to be here with us. Little old us in the studio. We're so lucky. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Now, yeah, I talked to Joshua on the phone yesterday. I'm going to call him Josh because he says I can. And he was coming from Santa Rosa, where he is now coaching. And he's a coach at racetracks around, is it all California? There's 3 racetracks that you're coaching at, right?
Yeah, principally California.
Yeah, okay. So he was coming down from Santa Rosa yesterday. I'm sure he sped all the way down here just to get here for us today. And he's like, okay, so we're getting off the phone. I was like, well, drive safe. And I hung up. I'm like, oh, God, what if I just like jinxed him? You know, because I used to be an actress, and the one thing you don't say is good luck. You say break a leg. So in the race car world, is when somebody says drive safe, are you just like cringing when you hear that?
No, I don't think we have an equivalent.
No. I didn't break any race car rules.
That's right. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, that's good news. Okay, so continuing our conversation, he was a test development driver in Italy for Maserati for 6.5 years.
Well, actually, it was 3 years at Ferrari and then 3.5 at Maserati.
Oh, you did test drive at Ferrari?
Well, no, so as an engineer at Ferrari.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So he was a test development driver at Maserati for a chunk of time. And, okay, when we left off, we were talking about basically you are the voice for the consumer to Maserati to help them develop their product. And this was for cars for you and me, not race cars yet. I drive my Maserati over the place. And thank you, Josh, for making it really, really special for me. So what made you leave Italy and Maserati? I mean, no offense, but that sounds kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, it was a tough decision, but all of my family are here. They're all kind of in the Santa Rosa area, and so I was looking forward to coming back to California. I'd only get to see them about once a year while I was in Italy, and
they weren't visiting you all the time?
Oh well, they were actually. That was one of the benefits of I'd have lots of friends and family coming over to visit me.
We need to have a talk.
That's right. But there were a couple of things. One, when I transitioned to Maserati, I was getting an Italian paycheck, which is not as nice as the United States paycheck. And then the other thing is they really frowned upon racing because their attitude is that a development test driver has a different attitude. He has a different objective from the racing driver. The racing driver is trying to make the fastest, best car that he can for himself, whereas the development test driver has to take into account all of the expectations of the customer, and make a car that is safe, that performs well, and is easy to drive. And that's not necessarily the case with a race car.
Interesting. That's a really interesting sort of, point. The point of view of the person sitting in the seat. The needs are completely different.
That's right.
And did you agree with that? Where you were like, but I can do both?
Well, no, I didn't agree with their opinion of, keeping the test drivers away from racing.
Mm-hmm. And racing one out.
That's right. It did. And that's really kind of what brought me back to the United States is they wouldn't because of the paycheck and also because of their expectations. It would have been difficult for me to race in Italy. So came back to the U.S. to start my racing career here.
Yeah. Well, they talk about how dangerous racing is. Have you seen the movie Rush?
I haven't seen it yet, and I'm really embarrassed that I haven't seen it yet.
But I'm kind of wondering, I don't know if race car drivers should see it. I'm not sure if they should or not. Maybe it's no big deal, but I have seen it, and it's really good.
Yeah.
But, one of the things they talk about over and over and over in the movie is just how dangerous it is to be a race car driver and the statistics of, perilous outcomes. So why do you do it?
Well, those were different years. Racing has definitely become much safer. And, even though that movie will bring out some of the more dangerous aspects of racing, a racing driver never thinks about that stuff. I mean, if you thought about it, you probably wouldn't do it. But the reason to do it is it's just an incredible rush. But it really... it's the challenge, I think, more than anything, because I like to think of it as a chess game in a boxing ring.
A chess game in a boxing ring. Wow, That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it is. People don't appreciate how physical racing is.
Yeah, so tell us about that. Tell us, what is it like? What is your experience as a race car driver?
Yeah, you're driving these cars and you're driving them at the limits. So it really requires a lot of sensitivity, but it also requires a lot of strength because these cars, they're not made to be driven easily. I mean, that's not the objective.
Right.
The guys that run the enduros, they have cars that are more built for comfort because they have to last 24 hours. But what I'm doing is sprint racing, where could run half hour, 45 minutes, and out there you're just duking it out with the guys around you. And
is there contact?
There is. We try and keep contact at a minimum, but when you're racing that fast and you're racing that close, everybody's looking for that last little inch of track, and it's not so much intentional, but it happens.
Yeah, they say it's not intentional. Sure.
Well, the intentional ones, they usually come with retribution, whether it's on track or off the track. So we're definitely careful about that because, of course, we all acknowledge it's a dangerous sport, and nobody wants to leave, in an ambulance.
Yeah. So aside from we mentioned chess and boxing. So it's not only is it physical, and you got to take your punches, I guess.
Right.
And your body has to withstand some abuse. It
Absolutely.
Sounds like. How do you prepare for that? How do you train for that?
There are a lot of different ways, and it's not really a science yet. I mean, the Formula One guys, they've got it down to a science. But for the rest of us, we kind of do what we can. And
why don't you do what they do?
Well, because they've got the multi-million-dollar budgets and the trainers and the nutritionists and
Gotcha.
But the things that make a good racing driver are the things that would make a good athlete. And I would say something like triathlon has been very helpful for my my physical development. But just general gym stuff. You want endurance, but you also want strength.
So, and then you mentioned the chess. So how is it like a chess game? How is it so mental?
Very, very mental because there aren't a lot of opportunities to pass. The racetrack, there's one good line, and that's the fastest way around the track. And there are places where you're going to compromise on that line to make that pass. So you have to be very careful. You have to know where those opportunities present themselves. You have to be ready for them because when you're racing against a guy who's just as fast as you are, you're looking for any little mistake, and you're always thinking about 3 corners ahead, about what can I do once we get to this point, and how am I going to set myself up so that I can get around him when the opportunity presents itself.
Now, okay, I mentioned in the intro there are a gazillion different classes and divisions and races and series, and I had no idea until recently. How do you choose what kind of driver you are and what kind of car you drive, and how do you find that little niche for yourself?
No, that's a good question. I think it has a lot to do with budget.
Okay.
First of all, that's going to, a lot of the Formula cars, the open wheel cars like the Indy cars, the Formula One cars, they have a higher cost just by nature of what they are. But those are also the ones where if you want to be a career driver, that's what you want to set your sights at. And I think that's really what it comes down to is what is your ultimate objective? Do you want to be an Indy driver? Do you want to be a NASCAR driver? There's a lot of feeder series for NASCAR, for example, in midgets and circle track, which is completely different from what I do. What I do is circuit racing, where they call them road courses because they're very similar to a road with, turns and elevation change.
But it is still a track. It's not like through a town.
No, that's right. It's still a track. It's, we're still doing laps around a track, but very, very technical course.
Okay. And so with so many races and so many, like you said, feeder series and feeder classes, I think you said, is there money in it for everybody, or is it kind of like, do you have to be Jeff Gordon or some Indy, Formula One guy to make a living at it? Can people, is there enough of a market to support all of these races?
That's a tough question. The money is the big part of it because in these feeder series, kids will come through in club racing, and in club racing there isn't a lot of money. Basically, you're putting all the money in order to advance your career. And we have some manufacturers that are very helpful. For example, Mazda has a great ladder program where they provide contingencies. So if you do well in the races, you actually get a little bit of money that helps with the costs. It doesn't take care of everything, but it's a big advantage for the Mazda racers. And then the Mazda racers that do well get an opportunity to compete for a spot in a pro series. And that's a huge help, for the kids who want to get started. Then from the pro series, they've got another step on the ladder that takes you to the next level. And so that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is just to throw money at it. There isn't only the top level is able to make a very good living. For the most part, people do it as a passion.
But you've got to learn somewhere, and we only have like a minute left. So I know you're a coach, and so is that basically the first step for anybody who's interested in this, as just to see if they can learn? How would you recommend for people to get started?
Well, I think the first place, there's a very good magazine called Grassroots Motorsports, and that's a great venue for finding out activities around the country. There's two organizations. One is the Sports Car Club of America, and the other one is the National Autosport Association, which I race with. So it's SCCA and NASA are the two designations, and you can find them online. And that's really the place where anybody can go with their own car, get started, see if they like it, and then move on from there.
All right. And so with these people that come to you for classes at these different racetracks, are they kids? Are they adults? Are they just doing it for a day's worth of fun? Or are they serious, like, I'm going to check this out to be a race car driver?
Yeah, it runs the whole gamut. Yeah. So,
and what do you teach them? Like, how do you teach somebody to race cars?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I work for Allan Racing. They do formula cars. So that's kind of a different experience from the Audi school that I work at, where it's all Audi customers or people that are interested in Audis. And so that's kind of a day out, and that's a lot of fun. And people learn the basics and things you can apply on the street. And then you can move through, and then you can get to something like Allan, where you're actually driving a formula car, around a circuit. And that's when you start to get into more advanced techniques of racing.
All right, folks, go take a class. It sounds like a super fun, and I was trying to mooch a ride last week. I was trying to get some audio. I'm going to get some audio for my show. It didn't work out. Dang it.
Another time.
Another time. Joshua Allan, race car driver, test driver, coach. He has been visiting with us today from Allan Racing School, as well as others. Thank you so very much.
He's going the distance. He's going for speed.
You've been listening to Sweet Life. I'm Brooke Peterson. You can like us on Facebook by searching Sweet Life Radio Show. Until next time, make it sweet.